Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. And I'm going to make some remarks that are not AI generated, I promise you that. As part of our continuing series of program sessions on AI, and I like to say that 5 years ago we couldn't spell AI in this room, but it's all around us now. We're happy to have Dr. Sarah Buchner join us to delve more deeply into applications and uses that are likely to revolutionize how our firms go about doing our work. AI is becoming more evident, the technology is becoming more widely available, some of which will affect our industry, whether you're architects, engineers, or builders. These applications or uses hold the potential of gains in both productivity and profitability. Dr. Buchner will help us examine how our industry can take more advantage of this potential, laying out 3 key steps. 1, giving us a technical overview of how large language data models work. 2, why we will come to rely on human-machine AI partnerships. And 3, identify the next wave of AI tools. Now, a little bit about Dr. Buchner. She is more than just a technology executive. This is somebody who started out as a carpenter in her native country of Austria. So she knows something about putting things together. But if I were to just offer some commentary on what others have said about Dr. Buchner, is that the company she's built has the chops to actually build something that works from a technical perspective, but also fits into the workflows in the way that the GCs and eventually subs will get together and get work done. And from another quote from somebody who's used Dr. Buchner is that they actually are great at collaborating and working with teams to deploy AI onto projects. So with that introduction, please join me in welcoming Dr. Sarah Buchner.
Okay, this is working? Yeah, cool. It's always great to have a 4 p.m. slot on a Tuesday. I'm sure you're all exhausted, so I'm going to make this heavily entertaining, and I'm trying to use as little buzzwords as possible. I'm very honored to be here. I'm honored to see a ton of our customers here. I will mention some of your names, so please don't be mad with me. And I'm also really honored to look at a group like this, which I call the Illuminati of construction. So you can take this. And I will be talking not just about our company, obviously. I will try to avoid that as much as possible. I was asked and tasked to entertain you for about an hour and to explain AI to a 5th grader. That did not come from me, okay? So if I say something that doesn't make sense or you don't understand my accent or something like that, please just ask. I want to keep this, I was asked to be like hybrid, so just throw out a question, I'm going to respond to it, and we'll just try to keep you guys all awake. So about myself, I started, as was mentioned before, as a carpenter about 20 years ago. So I understand everything from the field to actual project management. I built some high-rises for a while in Europe. And I thought about myself to be in construction for the rest of my life and actually in the field for the rest of my life until I had a fatality in one of my jobs. I was managing about 600 guys on a $400 million skyscraper. And we had a fatality. And for anybody who has experienced this, it's wild, it's a reality we're still living in, and that forced me to rethink my job, and I decided to actually build a health and safety app many, many years ago because I wanted to save, and not save, but I wanted to at least avoid and not be a manager where people literally die under your leadership. So that forced me to think about construction a little bit bigger, and ultimately ended up doing a PhD in AI in construction way before it was cool. So it was like a nerd topic back in the days. But it was paid by one of the largest general contractors in the world, which is Strabag, Europe. They do like 20 billion revenue. And the Strabag CEO was like, hey, I'm going to pay for your PhD, but I'm going to give you the topic. I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, I want you to tell me what we can do with our data. And after a few years of PhD research, I came back and was like, nothing. And so that was just the brutal reality that guys like you are sitting on a ton of data, but doing anything with it, at least many years ago, was almost impossible. Fast forward to 2022, 2023, when a lot of the AI advancement happened, I realized that actually now we're at a point where the technology has caught up and we are able to do something with the data that you guys have all collected over decades. And so I started a company called Trunk Tools. We build AI agents for general contractors. Recently, we also started with some subcontractors that are in the room. So very excited to talk about that as well. Oh yeah, and I came to the US because I don't like the European market. And the US is definitely the better economy, regardless of what was said before earlier today. I believe in the US economy. And I came to business school here just mostly to get a green card and to start a company here. So that led me to Stanford. Stanford is the place to start companies, and here we are. I was asked to give you a quick general overview of AI and the stock market. More relevant today than ever. It's interesting if you look at the Magnificent Seven and the market cap and how it went down, which is normal, and then it just started consistently going up. And what really turned around was kind of like November, December 2022, which is when OpenAI launched the more public available form of ChatGPT. It's pretty impressive how one single company can turn around a whole market like that. However, many people, including you, still have lots of concerns around AI. So that's a McKinsey study that actually shows how employees are worried about AI. Who in the room here has more than 1,000 employees? Raise your hand. Okay, so you guys have a lot of responsibility for these people's fears, right? And these are their fears: cybersecurity, inaccuracy, personal privacy. This is all okay. The organizers of CIRT did a little study with you guys beforehand and asked what your concerns are around AI. And this were the results. Did you guys actually fill this out? Nobody knows. Yeah, you're nodding, okay. Okay, so the data that I got, or my team got, was that the people in the room are mostly concerned when it comes to AI around data security, fair enough, lack of understanding of AI, that's why I'm up here on stage, and then behavior change. I've asked myself when I put this presentation together, I was like, okay, that's what you're all concerned, and I can address those, but I also wanted to show you what I'm concerned about AI, which is this. Job displacement, we will generate a whole generation without reasoning skills, and ultimately what is true or not, which is already hard to tell today, and it's going to be even harder in a few years. So I'd want you to look at this as you guys who have a lot of responsibility and you handle a lot of capital, and as me, who's on the cutting edge of this technology, and how different these concerns actually are, right? So you think a lot of the next few years, which is great, that's your job. But if you want to think about this as a society, there will be job displacement. And we had a great conversation at lunch. I'm very worried about throwing out numbers in front of a bigger group, but if you ask somebody like me, I'm really worried not about job displacement for the laborers or the tradespeople, but for knowledge work. What AI is really, really good at is automating and augmenting knowledge work, which is all of our jobs. It's my job as well, but it's also most of what the owner developers are paying a general contractor for. I don't have perfect numbers, but I would assume that 80 to 90% of the knowledge jobs are not going to exist anymore in about a decade. Talking about job displacement, also talking about a whole generation that believed that going to college will actually be the right thing because you'll have a guaranteed six-figure income. Also questioning that. Second point, I just want to give you some tidbits of thinking here, is are we currently creating a generation without any reasoning skills? I gave this example at lunch that I assume everybody in the room can still read a map, right? I assume if anybody here in the room was under 25 years old, they wouldn't find from here to the White House with a map. Just talk to your kids or grandkids or whatever, anybody who's under 25, they just can't read a map anymore, and we're totally okay with that because nobody needs it anymore. Right now, we're giving tools to teenagers that help them or let them avoid reasoning. That's the newest reasoning models that are widely available in the market that all of your kids and grandkids are using for school, ultimately take away the forcing function of school, which is forcing them to learn how to look at data, aggregate it, and create their own opinion. So that's something I just feel an influential group like you should start thinking about it. And then the third part is the truth. What is true anymore if I can recreate information within seconds and can just give it my own spin and twist, and not just in text, but also in media? Any comments? I'm not going to speak up here for an hour without anybody saying anything. Any questions? Are you shocked about your answers? No? Okay. I will point some, I will cold call eventually. Yes? Cool.
Well,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah. I'm not, right, it's the same with like an industrial revolution where you're like, okay, like 80% of the jobs are going to be gone, right? But we as a society created new jobs. Not saying that, right? I'm just saying that 80% of the workflows of knowledge workers that are being done today can be automated with the technologies that we have today. Which means I don't know, take an accounting function in any kind of department. Like accounting is putting numbers from A to B with a little bit of logic. That's done. Take a marketing department, right? Like come up with some, like, you know, some interesting phrases and put some pictures on it. That is done. So take a PR department, right? Like I can give you, like, can go through and I'll show you examples in construction. And I'm not saying that is done as of today. I'm telling you the technology is there. Now it will take several years to get adopted and to be actually like functioning, right? But I'll show you an example later. So we're launching this next week officially. We're comparing submittals with specs. No human should still be comparing two documents. All of you are signing off on this all the time, right? Like all of your teams are comparing submittals with specs. And the subcontractors like getting a spec request list, and they're like filtering and like uploading it. Like all of this is done. And when I mean it's done, means the technology is there. It's not widely adopted yet. Does that make sense? I appreciate the participation. So, however, all the fears, everybody's worried, and the AI adoption persists, right? It's actually pretty impressive if you look at the dark blue line, that's just general AI adoption, and then you look at generative AI adoption, which is the light blue line. For a new technology to get from 33 to 71% in 2 years of adoption is pretty impressive, and it's just a trend that like it will get close to 99% probably in the next year or two. We also asked you, and it says 82% of your companies are already using AI or planning to start using AI this year. And you can push back on that because that can mean everything and nothing, right? Because like, yes, I use Microsoft Copilot, okay, or yes, I use completely fancy AI agent, and the width of span is very, very far. It's interesting to also look at the stock market in this because companies like or like mine are heavily dependent on outside capital, right? Like I need to raise capital. So if the stock market wouldn't be bullish on AI, companies like I wouldn't exist. But you see what happened, right? It's like going up and to right, and we were all freaking out about the DeepSeek impact, but it's such a tiny point if you look at actually on the whole graph, right? So we were all very worried that DeepSeek's going to take down the AI bubble. If you actually looked at the market, it did almost nothing, right? It was just a tiny correction, and it's still up, I don't know how many points there. AI, as a McKinsey study, has an annual opportunity of $26 trillion. That's 2 times the construction industry. So massive impact. And now the question I was asked from the organizers is, can I actually explain what this massive impact is all about and what crazy statements like 80% of knowledge work is going to be gone, what they're actually based on? So if we want to look at what has happened or is happening, we need to look back at November 2022, which just to remember, to show you this again, I can't point on it, but you see that like in November 2022, we kind of like turned the curve around. The only thing that happened in November 2022 is what I'm going to tell you, and I hope you take this home with you because actually like it will explain everything. We'll do a quick quiz, okay? Can anybody explain the difference between deterministic and probabilistic models? Okay, I'll make this easy for you. Who can help me here? 4? You sure? Yes, okay. You're confident. Okay. So 2 plus 2 is 4. We all agree on that. That's a deterministic calculation. Okay? That's how Excel works. That's how like all of our finance world works. We'll do another quiz. This guy is blue. Okay. This guy's blue. Any other answers? Gray. This guy is an unobstructed view upward from the surface of the Earth. That's a Wikipedia definition. So this guy, yes, first answer, most people were like blue, but then were people, wait, it could be gray, it could be something else. That's a probabilistic answer. So if you ask a model to give me a probabilistic answer, you would say this guy is most likely blue, but we're not really, really sure. And the most important thing here is between deterministic and probabilistic models is that the probabilistic ones are probable. The only thing that happened in November 2022 is that the probabilistic models became so good that they seem deterministic to us. So all that happened is that AI is faking it so well that we believe it's 2 plus 2 is 4. So that's actually what happened in November 2022, and all of a sudden there's $26 trillion market opportunity. And it's very important because we have all these discussions, like, and you saw it before, that people are worried about hallucinations and inaccuracies. Every AI is always hallucinating, like, period. But sometimes it hallucinates and says the sky is blue, and you believe it. And so we all believe it's not hallucinating because it gave us the right answer. Did it? And the interesting part is all of us are also hallucinating all the time. So this whole terminology of AI is hallucinating is just doing the exact same thing as the human brain, because I'm standing here and I'm just assuming or calculating in my brain what I think you're going to want to hear from me, and then I'm going to say this, and somebody's asking me questions, and I'm giving an answer. That works exactly like a large language model. I'm just always doing math in my head to fill the next word. So I'm hallucinating, you're hallucinating, and AI is hallucinating. If you only take this away, I'm fine, by the way. So deterministic models, 2 plus 2 is 4, and all the buzz and all the AI fancy words that you have heard over the last year, it's all on the right side of this. These are all probabilistic models, okay? Large language models, RAG, agents, all of the stuff, all of generative AI is the sky is blue. Good? Okay, buzzwords. I have 4 buzzwords for you that I will break down and explain in construction, okay? Large language models, retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, knowledge graph, and agents. Has everybody heard about these words? Some are nodding. Okay, I'll try to keep it easy. Large language model is what I just explained, okay? It's like the sky is blue, or the sky could also be gray. A large language model is an AI model that is trained on massive amounts of data, usually based on the internet, by the way. So we're just scraping all of the text of the internet, we're pushing it in one AI model, and we're training it to learn how to read and speak human text. That's all it is. The analogy here to translate this back into construction is a very experienced PM who has read a lot of specs and a lot of submittals and a lot of drawings in their life, and then they are asked something, and they can probably give a good answer. If you ask an experienced guy to be like, hey, like, how do I best, like, I don't know, install this drywall, will they know how to do it? And why do they know how to do it? I'm pointing on you. Yes. Why does an experienced one know how to do something? Exactly. He's done it before, made mistakes. All of that is literally just because he's been trained on a lot of data, in this case, a lot of experience. So an example for the construction industry, if you ask who has used ChatGPT? Okay, that's amazing. Wow, if I did this a year ago, 5 of you would have raised a hand. So if you ask ChatGPT something construction, it's going to give you some general answer, but it's kind of useless for you in your actual job, right? You can ask it to write an email. You can ask it hey, what should I consider before I'm installing a plug? And it might tell you turn off the electricity, but it's not going to tell you where to install the plug. If you want to use AI to teach you where to install a plug, you need something that's called RAG, or retrieval augmented generation. Forget about the actual words, just remember RAG. RAG is a big thing right now in AI. What that means is you give the model specific data to look at and just answer within that data set. So in an analogy for construction is you have a resourceful PM, and when you ask them where to install the plug, they will actually take the drawings or the electrical drawings, actually take a look. One second. Actually take a look and figure out where to do this. That's something where our software is actually built based on RAG. So if you ask trunk text, hey, where should I put the plug? It's going to pull the electrical drawing up, and it's going to show you exactly where to do it. 2 more buzzwords. We're almost done. Knowledge graph. Has anybody heard about that? Yeah? Somebody was nodding. Mike? Yeah? Do you want to explain it?
I can read it.
Okay, I can do that too. I have a microphone. Knowledge graph is kind of the next phase that we're going in. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Knowledge graph is the next phase we're entering as an industry overall, where we are starting to not just generate text, but actually connect data points together. Knowledge graph is exactly how the human brain works. So I've known, thank you very much. It's very dry here. So I think I just met the CEO of Haskell. Where are you? Oh, there you go. What's your first name? Jim, perfect, thank you. So we work with Haskell. He obviously works for Haskell. And so he has a connection with Haskell. I have a connection with Haskell. And now we have a connection with Haskell. That's a knowledge graph. Okay, a knowledge graph in construction, it's just really connecting data points through relationships. That's all you guys do here every day, by the way. In construction, that would be a resource loaded schedule that's coming out of the BIM model, and everything is connected. That was our dream in like 2010. Never happened in construction. And so we have now the chance to actually rebuild BIM, building information technology, through AI without any humans in the loop. And I'll show an example how this works. Knowledge graph, okay, it's connecting data. And last but not least, agents. Who here was told by their innovation departments that you guys need to buy agents? No? Not yet? It's coming. I was just part of a JLL board meeting where all they discussed was like, we need to buy agents because agents is the future workforce and that's all what we need to do. What is an agent? An agent is really just an AI model that does a task by itself, okay? Think about it as an employee who can mostly do one single task. And it's kind of annoying that you're like, why can you only do this one single task? But if they are for free, pretty much, it doesn't matter, right? If you could hire like 1,000 agents at a time for like no money, it's okay that they do 1,000 different tasks. And so that's where a lot of this is going, that like, give you an example here for construction, it could be a super proactive QA/QC manager who actually will look at all the drawings and find all the discrepancies and points them out before you start a job. Wouldn't that be nice? That can be done or will be soon be done by AI. Okay, why are we talking about AI in this circle of construction Illuminati? Because construction and AI, at least in my mind, is the love story of the century. Why is that? Because our data is completely unstructured, it is completely siloed, and it's constantly changing. By the way, how unstructured? We are now sitting on, I honestly don't know the number, but probably billions of files of construction files. 85% of what we're getting are PDFs. PDFs are pretty dumb, right? Like from a data perspective, like PDF is one of the worst formats. Almost any job has about 10 different software systems. They're all not talking to each other, right? And then every single day on a job site, you get new drawings and new RFIs and new submittals and whatever. So it's completely humanly impossible. And I show you how humanly impossible it is. This is just an example, right? You have all these different systems, all these different files, and you all hope that your people in the field will somehow handle that. Because you all sign off to your customer that you have read every single page on a construction site and built exactly like specified. Let's talk about this. Is Raphael here from Suffolk? Suffolk, anybody? No? Okay, good. This is a Suffolk construction site that used our software there. 400 feet tall building in New York. Was anybody involved in this construction site? No? Okay, good. It was a bit of interesting job. The developer went to jail and stuff like that, but it happens. So we asked this job to give us access. It was like halfway through. It was like, give us access to all your construction-specific documentation, okay? Give us access to your Procore and to your SharePoint and whatever. So we got all RFIs, all submittals, all specs, all drawings, everything that you need to build this job site. Raise your hand if you think it was more than 1,000 pages. Okay, keep your hand up if you think it's more than 10,000 pages. Okay, more than 100,000 pages? Okay, more than 1,000,000 pages? Okay, okay, this is our customers, that's unfair over there. We got a total of 3.6 million pages when we started with them. The stack of paper is 3 times as high as the building they're building. And that's what you guys are dealing with every single day. And the absurdity behind it is that you're signing off in your contract. This all becomes part of the contract, right? Because you're signing off to your owner, yeah, I've built this high-rise as specified on 3.6 million pages. Like, no problem. And so that's completely humanly impossible. There's also obviously a ton of data discrepancies in such a massive amount of data. We did a study and showed that 65% of rework can be tracked back to data discrepancies in the documentation. If you calculate with 10% reworks, that's 6.5% of the overall construction cost. If you run a GC at a 3% margin, you could triple your margin if you just would avoid your data discrepancies. Sorry if that was too fast. So also interesting, I keep on saying unstructured data. I love this image. I recently found this because you would think that the bottom image is actually ordered, right? And the top one is chaotic. But that's exactly how construction works, right? Like if you think about it, right? We have all the materials and so on. They can be as much as in order as they are, but ultimately that's chaos, and we are trying to rebuild this little branch of the tree. So going back to this, how can AI actually help with this problem? So what companies like us are doing is we take all of the super unstructured data, like schedules and drawings and whatever, and we use RAG, retrieval augmented generation, to turn unstructured data into structured data sets. It's getting more interesting for you, I promise. And we're not doing this on one page, but we obviously do some millions and millions of pages. So what it ultimately does, it is going into all these different data silos and training one massive brain for each job. So now all of a sudden we have an AI on a job, and that AI can power different workflows or different agents or whatever. And yes, this is an example of our company, but it doesn't really matter. Any kind of AI that you will find out there takes data, will translate data into AI, and will help with that AI to power different agentic workflows. That's an important one for you to understand how this works. It's also important because you'll understand why traditional software players have real problems keeping up with what's happening in the market. It's just like there's a certain like flexibility that you need to do something like that, which is very hard to have in traditional systems. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. 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 So two separate questions, right? Like, let's talk about generalists like Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT or something like that. Those will get you really far for like your jobs, like for like general. And I'm using it for my own CEO role. Like I had to have it analyze my quarterly reporting and my roadmap and like my financial model. And it's really good at all of that stuff because you always have to think about what is it trained on. General tools like Microsoft Copilot are trained on the world or in the internet, which has a lot of knowledge about how you be a good CEO. Doesn't have a lot of data around like how do you build a construction site, right? And so you should think about like how good does it need to be, how accurate does it need to be, for what part and what data is it trained on. So I wouldn't like, and we have customers in the room that ran us exactly against Microsoft Copilot, and we won this every single time because Microsoft isn't trained on construction data. So it depends on who you want to use it for. For the field, Microsoft Copilot is you can forget it. But for something like any kind of back office stuff, great, go for it. And then you also and then there's ChatGPT versus Microsoft Copilot, and Microsoft is just behind, but they might catch up, right? Google caught up. So second question, that's a really good one. A lot of CEOs are like, oh, do I need to structure my data? Do I need to hire McKinsey and have them come in and clean our data lake to actually be able to do anything with it? And 5 years ago, I would have told you yes. And now I'm telling you no, because what these models became really good at is actually like doing the cleaning for you. And so a lot of the strategies that we had years ago around data lake and data collection and data cleaning are pretty irrelevant nowadays. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the same. So Teams itself is obviously SharePoint based, right? So it is cloud based, so it's all theoretically in an accessible location. The question is like, is there a John Teams and is there a Rebecca Teams, right? And like both of them are behind kind of like a wall or something like that. It's the same as back in the days. If you had something on your server, then it's always only going to be on your server. So don't be stupid about that, right? And so that's more corporate like policies. Where it's like, okay, don't store anything just in your teams. Make it accessible in the project teams or something like that. But in the end, I would tell you as an AI person, it doesn't matter because you can literally like. Here's a term I described at lunch. Has anybody heard about vibe coding? Yeah, okay, cool. Vibe coding is a whole new term where I'm promising you that every single person in the room here can develop a code that solves Fred's problem here of data being segregated within 2 hours. Even so, I know none of you have ever coded before. Because with something like a ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, you can just go in and be like, Fred, you can go in tonight and be like, hey, please, I need a script that will pull together data out of my Microsoft Teams very efficiently and put it all in one place. That's what you want to do. I promise you, you can develop that code by yourself as of today. That's crazy, right? Because 5 years ago, we told everybody, go study computer science. Like, you'll be rich. Like, your kids can go to college. Now, Fred, I am making assumptions. You've never coded before? You actually have. Wow, okay. Oh, you actually know, okay. But like a Fred that has never coded before will now be able to code just pretty much by semantically talking to the systems. So that's why it's a solved problem. And you ended up in construction, it's lovely. Yes?
Hi, in your graphic here, you guys have a construction. It implies you guys don't build it for the customer. One of the things we've heard that native large language model not very good with like actually they can't take something and analyze it.
Yeah.
Well, and that is a
Yeah. It's a deterministic thing. I'm still waiting to see a startup that will do that, right? Because it's not that complex to do. So somebody pretty much just needs to collect all the code, which is already in like databases and everything, and figure out an AI that is like, okay, which code applies to this one job and to this one trade. We haven't done this because it's not our business model, but it's not hard to do. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other question I would say is that, right,
Yeah.
so the question is, why is someone going to go and do that? More money and financial. AI is construction and classes, that's AI. Totally.
Yeah.
And because so much of our cost is based on raw experience.
I don't think it's just that. As somebody who runs a high growth construction tech startup, what's hard about it is actually, it's getting better now, right? And there's a few other founders here. For a long time, it was really hard to raise capital for a software company in this industry because the investors would look at it and it was like, wait, it takes you 3 years to do an enterprise-wide rollout? So the CAC towards revenue is really, really hard for us in construction versus in other industries. Because adoption, and I'm looking at the room, right? Adoption is like, oh, let me do like one pilot. And then 3 months later or 6 months later, it's like, oh, let me do a second pilot. Meanwhile, I'm here, and it's like, okay, the second pilot, we're at like $20,000, $30,000 in revenue. I'm like, do this in any other industry. Like you have adoption, you're like in millions of dollars of contract volume in like the first year, right? So construction is historically very slow to adopt technology, which we all know. And that makes it hard for entrepreneurs to even go into this field because venture capitalists see this and they're like, that's a shitty industry. But again, like, I mean, I come from construction, like, I love it, but it's like, it's a shitty industry, but it's a massive industry too, right? So if you actually produce something that works, and we have multiple customers here that have scaled very fast, that's great, but it's nothing in comparison to producing something in finance, right? Like Cursor, friends of mine have started a company called Cursor. They went from 0 to $100 million in revenue in a year. In software, that is insane. Like if I want to get to $100 million in revenue, it's going to take, what, 5 years at least? I think it took Procore like 15 years to get to $100 million in revenue, just to give you a sense for this. Okay, we're not completely screwed in construction because I actually love what the unions did here. Hey, ChatGPT finished this building. That's not going to happen anytime soon. I actually personally believe that the trades will be even more valuable in the next like 5 to 10 years because again, knowledge work will go down from a valuable perspective. Labor will go up. And again, it's not all about automation. We like to say as a company that we're not doing AI, we're doing IA. And what I mean with that is intelligence augmentation, right? A lot of this is really about augmenting your thousands of employees with tools that make them more productive and faster. And we've seen these productivity gains. Currently, for example, just our basic version of trunk text, we did a study with Gilbane. I don't know if Adam is here. Oh, there you are. Hi. We did a study where we showed that people spend about 20% of their time looking for information. Okay, in a 5-day work week, that means every Friday they just sit there and look for information. And if we say, like, what is it, 40% material costs, 60% labor costs, 20% of 60%, you can do the math, right? And so, like, there's just very simple things we can do to actually help the people and augment them. So let's talk about some of these things. I was asked to present some of the agents that are actually currently working and that you can buy. Here are the top AI use cases that you guys saw. It's very interesting that the blue stuff, this is a questionnaire that you guys filled out. The blue stuff is actually not what I think you guys want to have, but just what's on the market. Right, if you look at the bottom 3, information accessibility, that's trunk tools, design BIM, there's a ton of tools out there, contract review, that's document crunch, right? So like that's just like what is on the market. If you look at the yellow, I think that's way more significant and shows where you guys actually want companies like us to go. A lot of it is like in the ERP, right? Like how do I actually get the right materials at the right time, fast enough, and so on, especially with the current like market dynamics. And then project management overall, obviously, because most of you are making money off of that. So I brought 3 companies with me today. Most of you probably have heard about Alice Technologies. It's like 10 years old. They do scheduling, and what I actually really appreciate this, they were very much like, oh, we need a 3D model to get to a schedule. And over the last few years, they realized that nobody has really good 3D models. So they went backwards and are now doing like 2D and 1D optimization. But here I show you how AI can look like for scheduling. So you have some kind of schedule, and then you just be like, hey, which tasks should I focus on improving to actually improve project duration? It gives you an answer. And then what's interesting, you see this in the video, you can semantically tell your schedule what you want it to do, and it will do it for you. It will also take a shitty schedule and run through all the possibilities and make it the best schedule based on what you want, right? It was like, hey, I want to make it the duration shorter. I want to like reduce cost, whatever you or your developer wants to optimize for. And then you see within a few seconds, it will actually pop up different versions of different schedules, and you can just automate. You can actually look, sorry. Oh yeah, that's the number 1 up there in the top is the baseline schedule, and it will make different suggestions for different schedules. And it will pretty much just do what a really good scheduler does, but it does it through AI and it does it automatically. Kaya AI, is anybody using them? It's brand new. Kaya AI is doing, I think, Adam, that's what you asked me yesterday about. They're focused very much on the supply chain. They're really trying to kind of like get you as close as possible to the actual like material producer and use AI to actually do this, a little bit the decentralization of supply chain. It's very interesting. And then you will always see with AI agent the same chat interface, right? And the reason for that is because we're trying to bring humans back to what humans are used to, which is talking and not analyzing tons amounts of data. This is a great study we've done. I think this was I don't know, it was probably a Suffolk construction site. We actually measured how channel contractors are spending time on a job site. And if you look, get down here. If you look at, oh, this doesn't work. Okay, I'm walking. If you look at this here, they only spend 8% of their time on field issues. That should be their job. So they're spending 92% of their time on some kind of bureaucracy. This is literally, we had several students standing out there stopping time of a whole GC team, 40 people on a pretty large job. And we have realized that 90% plus of the time is just spent on something. To the question before that we had, like, why is knowledge work getting automated? Because 90% of knowledge work is actually bureaucracy. And so companies like ours are going ahead and be like, hey, I can build an agent for each of these bureaucratic workflows and actually automate a lot of the work. So this is an aggressive one, but you see a little bit where this is going, right? Like, hey, we can actually help with anticipating RFIs or with meeting prep. Like, people spend 3 hours a week prepping for meetings. Like, what was said in the last meeting? What are open items? Like, what do I have to actually talk about? I'm sorry, that can just be all fully automated. So here are some of the agents that we have developed. Again, meeting prep I just talked about. Contract review and compliance is a topic that came up before. Accessing information. Here, really interesting one, I'm gonna talk about this in a second. We can now anticipate RFIs. Not all of them, for sure not, but that's what we're trying to get to. But we can use AI to scrape all of the data and be like, what are the problems with it? Let me dive into this. RFIs, I like to call them really frustrating information. And we did an analysis on all the RFIs, and we are sitting by now on like millions of RFIs. And actually, we did a massive study and showed that 80% of all RFIs that we have access to could have been addressed before they happened. Purely based on data, by the way, not based on good PMs or something like that. So if you can address 80% of the RFIs with AI, then you should have no RFI, or almost no RFIs anymore, right? We also did a study. The general contractor overhead per RFI on a larger job is about $3,000. Does that check out? Some of you are nodding. The average RFIs on a $100 million job is $2,000, just to give you some numbers here. And 80% of those you could avoid, right? You can do the math. This is like $6 million in RFI overhead that really nobody needs. Also very interesting, we did this study on RFIs where we're like, okay, how many RFIs are actually drawing related? You know, like in construction, it's like, it's all the architect's fault. Some of it is definitely the architect's fault, if you look at this. So about half of it is actually in the drawings. But the interesting part of it is about 40% of all RFIs is because of conflicts. Okay, so conflicts within two data sets that we could have all found way before. So I know we are all like, some of you like RFIs because they can turn into change orders and so on. I think as somebody who likes the industry holistically, that this is should be a solved problem that we could really get rid of, make our world way more efficient. And if anybody cares about climate change, if this was actually rolled out on all of construction projects, we would save 4% of the CO2 emissions, just purely by avoiding RFIs because of clashing data. So I can get my plastic straws back. How does this work with AI? So we showed you this before, right? Like, you need to extract all the data, to your question, Fred, and then you can turn the data and connect it into a knowledge graph. Once it's in the knowledge graph, that's what we had before, when like the brain, how it works, you can then show and clash data purely done by AI without a human in the loop. So you can have this as an example where the hardware schedule says the door needs an electrical outlet, but the electrical drawing doesn't have an outlet. So you can clash these data points together, like, you know, clash detection in BIM, but you do it purely based on data without any human in the loop, and you can get ahead on RFIs or any other problems. How does this work in practice? For people in the field, they can click, say like, hey, actually run an RFI detector, figure out what, this is brand new, nobody has seen this yet. I'm presenting this with Gilbane next week at ERNR Future Tech. But we can just passively clash together different bits and pieces of drawings and specs and submittals and all of this. And you will see, oh my God, there's conflicts. And again, this is an agent that scales unlimitedly, so you can just have hundreds of them without any real cost, right? There's some cost, obviously, but in comparison to every single cost of an RFI, this is no comparison. And then the beauty is of AI, it tells you, do you want to draft the actual RFI? It writes it for you, and you just send it. So going back to the knowledge work question, why can we reduce it that heavily? Because most of the workflows that a knowledge worker does are actually not intelligent. The intelligent one is finding the problem, but not actually the rest of the resolution. Why do we care about this? Because construction is the most consumed product on Earth. I don't know if you've ever thought about it like that, right? The only thing that humans consume more than construction is what? Who is it? Air? Air. You've heard me before. Sorry, I only have like 5 jokes, you know. Yeah, the only thing, so a human consumes construction 99.9% of their lifetime, right? The only thing we consume more than construction is air. So it's a really impactful position that all of you have, and you should be really, really proud and excited about it. And assuming that's true, right? Like that we're consuming construction all the time, you understand that the $26 trillion economic impact of AI is mostly going to impact an industry like ours. So to the question, is AI going to take your job? No, but somebody who is using AI will take your job, or probably is taking your job as of now. This is not something that will be somehow impactful in like 5 or 10 years, and you guys might retire before that. This is here. This is happening now. And it's an insane challenge, I think, for anybody here in the room to actually know how you're going to drive the change within your organization, because this is not something that's going to go anywhere. I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to just ask you guys for any kind of questions. Yes?
So, good presentation. My question is, all of this is very static data, facts, right? We're in a database or something. How close are you, or are we not, to saying, like, we talk about how much data is generated daily? Still, there's human interaction, blocking jobs. Where are we at the point in terms of video processing? Go to live action, and then it can look at data and say, oh, I know the hangers 35 feet on the pipe, process them rapidly, or I want to look at production rates, it knows I have 2 courses, I hate that.
Yeah.
How far away is that graphical processing of the real-time data? Like, to me, that's the whole.
Yeah.
And then you get the daily data deciding live data.
So it's here. So I have examples, I didn't put them in the presentation, where it was a crazy one. We gave our models just three iPhone images from a construction site. That's all. And we were like, hey, please tell us how far is the job? Is there any problems? And, you know, kind of like these basic questions. And it showed us even like an installation problem of the ceiling of the roof. Like, it just read that out of the image. And so, like, it is really, really good. The reason why nobody has done this for the whole industry, it is currently way too expensive. So image processing is like 100x as expensive as text processing, and so the ROI is not there right now. But thankfully, all of you are building a shit ton of data centers, and somehow we'll figure out where we find the energy for all these data centers. But once we figure that out, then data processing is going to go down, and then that image part is resolved. So yeah.
So what's your business model?
So we are traditional SaaS. We sell per job right now, and then we include a lot of the services around actual behavioral change, because there is hesitation and there's fear and so on. And so, like, in the beginning, we were like, we'll just dump AI, and you guys figured out. That was a bad day for me when I realized that that's not going to happen. So yeah, we have sophisticated customer experience people who come on the job and teach the people how you ask a smart question and how to use that. No, I did an MBA at Stanford. I think Alice was a PhD. Yeah. I'm not as cool. Yes. Sorry. Do you find people more receptive to AI? Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think it depends. I think there's definitely more openness. I think when we have these success stories with Adam, for example, from Gilbane, where Gilbane did a phenomenal job as an executive team creating awareness and be like, hey, we are doing this, right? There's like, I'm sorry to point you out that much, right? But like, just like we as Gilbane, we know that AI is going to come, and so like let's do top down. And then they also found the bottom-up movement, and so they made this like fairly successful. Was very fast adoption, one of the fastest ones I've seen so far. So that's a good example. Where we get stuck a lot is like legal departments, right? And so like the lawyers just not being able to wrap their head around that we're training with the data, and you guys are actually not owning the data because it's actually your customer's data and so on. So recommendation, what I've seen companies do it successfully with outside counsel, because no offense, but your lawyers are trained and really good at making construction contracts successful. They have no idea about AI contracts, and they shouldn't even touch them. And so like I see red lines from your lawyers, and I'm like, this makes no sense. Like this has nothing to do with AI, and they're not even focusing on the right things they should be focusing on, right? Yes. You do, to my understanding, in most of your contracts, you do not own the data. You get it leased from your client. It is and it isn't, because like data is not worth that much anymore as it was many years ago, because right now you need way less data. So that's almost a misunderstanding, right? We hear like OpenAI is like spent billions of dollars to train the models and it needed so much data. I was like, yeah, but that's just to train the original model. To fine tune it for construction, it takes very little. What was the question? Mm-hmm.
All of our project files, they check all of that. So all of the financial available to somebody else.
So that's not how it works, like, but I understand where the fear comes from, right? So that's similar, like most of you went through the transition of the cloud. That was the same fear people had around the cloud, right? It was like, oh, if the stuff is on my server, then nobody can access it. So also, first and foremost, not true. And in a cloud, it's like all of your stuff is in a cloud now, and you're not worried anymore that like it's the same cloud, by the way. Like if you're all on Microsoft, it's one cloud, one big cloud. And there is the, whatever it is, the STO data, and then there is the Turner data. But it doesn't mean that STO can see Turner's data in the cloud, and that's the same how AI works. Is there worry that like if you use the wrong AI, that it will actually learn on each other's data? Yes, but that's again where a good lawyer comes in and actually makes sure that's not going to happen. But sorry, one more thing to the adoption question that came there. What's interesting about AI is, have you had job sites where they do text messaging or WhatsApp or something like that? I don't know how close you are anymore, but like on most job sites nowadays, they have text messages group or WhatsApp groups where they like with different subcontractors and stuff like that, which is completely absurd, right? This is completely outside of your security bubble and everything. They send around data, and it's crazy, but that's how they manage their jobs because the brokers of the world are not providing an experience that is worth it. That's what's happening in AI. People getting used to the comfort of like a ChatGPT. And I can tell you, 50% when we teach teams on the construction side and we ask them, have you used ChatGPT before? Everybody raises their hand because they're like, you know, young and under pressure. But when you ask them, have you used ChatGPT for this job? There's a 50-50 chance they say yes. So they're using your contract and your data and uploading in a public AI already because it makes their life so much easier. And so I think a lot of the adoption now is faster with AI than normal because people are really getting used to using it, you know, for their personal life. Other questions? Yes. Yeah, so I'm currently spending over, I think by now it's almost like $1 million or $2 million a month on drawings. And on people trying to train drawings and stuff like that. The drawing problem is really, really hard. So are we doing some of that? Yes. Are we perfect? By far not. And so our AI is at a point where it identifies most objects. So like it can tell you how many toilets there's and stuff like that. It identifies walls, it identifies rooms. And it can clash information, but it's by far not perfect. And the problem with that is there's no standards. It's really hard to even describe how to read a drawing, right? So like it's just like highly complex, especially if once you get into the MEP drawings and stuff like that. But give it another year or two, and it's going to be a solved problem. Not just by us, by the way. I think there's multiple companies right now really narrowing down and focusing on the drawing problem. Yeah. Yes. Better? Ooh. 1, 2, yeah. The second question is like, can it, can you just like let it do your job? Like that's the question I heard, right? And so I'm trying to let it completely do my job. And besides the public facing stuff like this, it's pretty good. And so, but you shouldn't just sit there and be like, okay, can you please make my companies like financially successful? You have to give it a little bit more, right? You have to upload your financials and be like, hey, start analyzing my financials and can you see any discrepancies or any problems or like where are we losing most money? Like that's actually a good idea, right? Upload all of your financials of the whatever, like say you have 100 jobs, upload the 100 job financials of or the quarterly reports or whatever, and let it go in and be like, okay, where are we losing most money? First prompt. It's gonna give you some answers, and then you're like, why are we losing that much money? And it's gonna give you some answers and so on. So like guide it more like a sophisticated right hand. Yes, and it knows that. Hmm. It's the right. Just ask it. Yeah, you just ask it. I was just like, if it's too broad and be like, oh, just help me figure out, it will probably come back and be like, okay, do you want to dive into the financials? And you're like, yeah. And then it will be like, please upload some. And so like, it will talk to you like a very, think about it right now. It's probably the best McKinsey consultant that you have ever seen, but for dollars instead of for millions. And I've done this. I had it recently. Had it like build a competitor analysis, right? And it was like, okay, like I'm an AI platform in construction. Like, find me all competitors, right? And you know, it does some, and then you guide it a little bit, and I was like, okay, analyze how much these competitors have raised, how many people they have, right? And it's like, and like, analyze how many patents they have filed, like which patents they have filed, and so on, and it like just does it. I think people are worried about using it in business because they're not comfortable using it in private. And so like I always tell people the same story. Who here has grandchildren under 10? Anybody? Okay, cool. Mike. How old is grandson, daughter? Okay, the 4-year-old. What is it? Girl, boy? What's his name? Cameron. Okay. Are you reading Cameron bedtime stories? You use Alexa to read Cameron, but I'm not the one to judge here. Yes, you're good. Is there anything, Mike, you want Cameron to really learn about how to live a good life? Be a compassionate soul. Wow, that's beautiful. So take ChatGPT or something and say like, hey, write a personalized bedtime story for Cameron, or like how to be a compassionate soul. And within seconds, it's going to spit something out. And then you can use a vision model and be like, okay, here's a photo of Cameron. Can you turn this now into a comic that like looks like Cameron, right? And so you keep going and going, and ultimately have your own movie about Cameron and how to be a compassionate soul, right? So I like these examples because people usually are close enough to be like, okay, I can use this at home. My favorite, by the way, is like when I get a really stupid text message from my partner, like romantic partner, and I just want to say something really stupidly back. I just sometimes ask AI and be like, hey, can you like just say like no, but like in really nice and loving terms? Has it has saved my relationship multiple times. So, you know, if your wife is really upset with you, just like plug it in or be like, write me a poem, you know, what gift could I bring? For our 30th wedding anniversary I've missed last week because I was traveling, that kind of stuff, right? It's like really creative, it's really helpful. And when you start using it in your personal life, you're more comfortable using it in your professional life. I think that's, you know, if that's my last, I don't know when I have to stop, but if that's my overall message, is like just do it because you're too young for not to do it. As much as you might think you are not, and I'm so much younger and whatever, but like it is here, it's not going anywhere, and it's ultimately going to change you and your organizations and your job. So I think with this, what? I got more time. Okay, any other questions? You mean like a takeoff model, or? Yeah. You mean, is there an AI model that can do automated takeoffs? Yes. No. Is there a human that can do it? AI is, it seems magical, it's not magic. So if a human can't do it, it won't be able to. If it's just not doable, it won't do it. It can give you a pretty good guess. And don't forget what I said before, 2 plus 2 is 4, but the sky is blue, gray. It's all just guessing. Everything I showed you is guessing. So there's never gonna be 100%. Like AI is never gonna be 100% accurate, ever. By the way, you're humans, and all of you are not either. And we actually did a few studies where we showed that AI is I mean, the whole world knows this, but now AI by now is more accurate than the human. We just believe we're better than it. So no 100%. And the whole problem of us starting to build something that we haven't decided what we want to build, that's also not going to be solved. Any other questions? Yes. No, the OCR is amazing, actually. I recently got a handwritten like thank you card, and I couldn't read it, and I asked AI, and it totally did it. And then it responded, "Do you want this to turn it into an art piece?" I was like, "No, why would I want to do that?" But so no, OCR is totally done. That's all fine. AI has a little bit of problems with like the revision clouds that architects do because they're inconsistent and they're weird and stuff like that. But the interesting part is the way drawings are being done, it's down to a pixel level. So it's actually not taking the vectors out of a PDF. It's like high resolution pixels. That's the only way how a vision. So a vision model, like language model, we've talked about the sky is blue. A vision model is calculating the most likely next pixel. So have you played around? Somebody told me at lunch that they played around with an AI to give them a headshot. Who was it? Oh yeah. Do you want to quickly tell them the story? It was great. So what it did there, it was like looking at the world's data on like, hey, how do you actually portray somebody in a professional setting, right? So it was analyzing millions and millions of photos before, which was like, okay, it identified he was a man, it put a suit on him, put an office in the background. I really don't understand how it got to the hair part, but like, I'll look at what you actually prompted and what you did. But all it does there is, again, it's calculating the most likely next pixel. And it's a good place to start. I recently needed a headshot for something. I really didn't have time to do the whole hair and makeup and photo thing. And I was just like, okay, here's an average photo, make this look better, and just comes out and it's like high resolution. And you can all be done with these photos if you want. Okay, any final questions? Okay, cool. Thank you very much for having somebody like me up here. I appreciate it.
Fantastic, Sally. Thank you so much. I hope you found that fascinating, informative, and interesting, but a little glimpse at what our future is going to look like, maybe not so far into the future as we thought maybe at one time.